Okay. And next review is going to be Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, which is a translated webcomic. And it's also a web novel version. I'm going to be reviewing the webcomic because that's the one I liked more. It is 18 plus chapters on the official English publisher. I'm sure you can find a few more fan translated chapters if you look elsewhere on the internet. Because there is an English publisher, that's what I'm going to be linking to. It is free for like the first few chapters, and there's a paywall, of course. So here you go. This is the novel description, the webcomic description. Back then, Dokja had no idea. He had no idea his favorite web novel, The 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, was going to come to life, and that he would become the only person to know how the world was going to end. He also had no idea he would end up becoming the protagonist of this novel turned reality. Now, Dokja will go on a journey to change the course of the story and save humankind once and for all. Okay, I will note that there is a translated light novel version of the story that came out first. It is completed. You can read it on Web Novels. Again, I have a link in the show notes. They're the official English translation publisher. But this review is for the webcomic because I liked it so much more. Like, I actually read the webcomic and I ran out of chapter and I was like, I enjoyed it so much. I was like, I'm going to give the web novel version a shot because I need more story. And when I read it, I was like, you know what? Never mind. I'm going to go back to that webcomic. I'll just wait. And that's not because the actual light novel is written poorly. It's just, it didn't fulfill the same kind of enjoyment that the webcomic did because of the visuals. The web novel version, I think they're just because where it's set, it assumes the reader's familiar with these spoken locations, and I'm like, I don't know where that is. I don't know. I didn't recognize those locations. There was no visual for me to just be described for me to kind of latch onto. But in the webcomic version, even though it's again originally in another language, the visuals translate perfectly, and there's such a gritty violence and realism, and the art is great. And even though just the text bubble is translated, the visuals bring so much more to this, that I just had such a great time. Like, I really did not think this is so good. Every chapter in this story, first talk about the story. The story fundamentally is a RPG Apocalypse story where the world goes to heck in a handbasket. Now, the only twist on that is that the main character had been reading a web novel, a light novel version of the exact same thing happening. And he in beginning, this isn't too spoilery, in the first chapters of the story, he comes to the very end of that 3,000 chapter novel or whatever, and he's like one of the only readers left who survived to the end, who finishes it off. And the author's like, thank you very much for finishing my novel. You're one of the only people who encouraged me to continue to do so. And so as a reward, here's a copy of the novel. And then as soon as he finishes that message, the world RPG Apocalypse happens just as it did in the story, because he was the only one of the few people who finished it. He actually has foreknowledge of what's happening in the RPG Apocalypse. And he uses that foreknowledge along with his own RPG power that are related to his ability, his reading, and his knowledge of the upcoming story to survive, and to use that to try to make sure he survives, and also give himself and the people he eventually grows up with an advantage in the story. And so the story kind of molds as him having foreknowledge for these events happening, and of the main characters in the story he read, and trying to use that to gain advantages and survive. And he doesn't have any particularly amazing special powers, just a will to survive and a knowledge of abilities and things that are happening in the future, and using those things to get an advantage. And so it's like I said, it's a great story. The art is great too. I'm actually going to show you the art in the video version of the podcast right now, just so you could see what I mean. I'm the settings coming to life, the tension, the terror, the violence, that just for me didn't come through the light novel as well. So just looking at what's happening in the story visually, the art is it's really spot on. I look forward to every weekly update of the chapters as they come through for this particular trend. It's one of my favorite webcomics at the moment. So it's just entertaining stuff. So really good stuff there. So for me, the webcomic Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint gets a score of 8 out of 10. Like I said, there's not a ton of chapters on the official webcomic English publishers. There are, I think, 19 at this point. You can technically find more if you go searching with that title name other places. But again, because this has an English publisher, an officially licensed English publisher, both as a light novel and as a webcomic, I would link into those places so that the author and the publishers get the money for the good work that they're doing on an official basis. So there you go. But for me, 8 out of 10, had such a good time with this webcomic, and I still enjoy it. It's continuing on, so I've enjoyed it a lot.